Hey, greetings, warfighters and friends. Today's topic on the Catholic SWO is work-life balance, and it's in response to a question I received from a friend. How do I be a mom, or how do I be a dad and a SWO? Right, how do you balance being a parent? And a separate corollary video to this would probably be how do you balance being a husband or wife and being a SWO. Being a SWO in particular, we usually pull long hours. It's a lot of hard work, a lot of stress, um, and it can be challenging, right? How do you lead and effectively lead and do your due diligence at work and be a parent? And I often think about this topic over the years. I've seen many people try and pull it off, some successfully, some really not successfully. And it brings me back to the movie We Were Soldiers, right? And Mel Gibson's character, Lieutenant Colonel Hal Moore, is asked by one of his second lieutenants, essentially that same question: how do you reconcile being a father and an Army officer and a leader? And Hal Moore's answer was pretty simple, and I think profound. He said, "I hope that being good at one makes me better at the other." Okay, so what does that mean, right? It means being a good dad or good mom will in turn make you a better leader of men and women. And if you are good at leading men and women in the workplace and in war and in combat, in times of stress and crisis, if you're good at that, it will make you a better father and a better mother. How so, right? So the leadership qualities of a dad or a mom and of a SWO overlap, right? As a SWO, we care for our sailors and the JOs that work under us. We are responsible for their lives. We're responsible for their training. In a lot of ways, we're responsible for the upbringing and their military bearing, how to teaching them how to be officers or how to be sailors, how to act with military bearing, with honor, courage, and commitment. Just as a parent, you do the same with your child. I've got a 4-year-old, and teaching him how to respect his mom and how to respect me, how to take care of his little brother, how to behave is a core requirement as a dad or a mom. Now, if you're going to be really, sensitive, you might attempt to say that I'm drawing a comparison, treating your sailors and officers like they're your kids. I'm not really saying that. I'm saying that there are parallels between the leadership styles and skills that you can employ in both spheres of your life, and they can complement one another, right? If you love your sailors and you love your JOs as you love your children, that will only be a good thing. And here I'm using the term love as willing the good of the other as other, right? If you make it your mission to do good for them, to set them up for success, to put them first, right? And I've talked about this in my servant leadership video. If you love your sailors the way you love your children, and if you love your children the way you're taking care of your sailors, you're going to succeed at both. Now, being a SWO, a division officer or a department head, certainly an XOCO, can be a daunting task all by itself, and the time demands can be quite substantial. And the time demands of being a mom or a dad, those are no joke either, right? So what can you do, right? It comes down to time management and prioritization, right? I remember one of my former COs, he used to tell the department heads when they got to be in their department head role, they were going to have 200 things a day to do. And they, as department heads, had to figure out which 80 actually needed to get done, right? And to me, that was an enormous amount of trust being placed because, hey, yeah, I mean, as officers and certainly as leaders, chiefs will definitely feel this too. You got a lot of things to do every day, right? You got a lot of things to plan for, to prepare for, to execute, and you're just not going to do them all, right? There's not enough hours in the day. It's not possible. So you end up having to prioritize. Well, having a family means that you've got a big prioritization mark, and you have to figure out what your constraints are. Constraints, right? So things that you must accomplish. You've got to spend time with your kids, right? Mom or dad, right? You've got to be there for them. They have to see your face. They have to hear your voice. They have to feel your presence. They have to feel you hug them, feel you give them kisses on the cheek or the face. They've got to feel that affection and that love. It's critical for them, for them to do that. Now, does it have to be all the time? No. Kids are resilient. Kids are tough, and they'll adapt. And even if they can't understand fully why you're not there, if they're young enough, quite frankly, they won't even remember, right? And I'll just give you an example. I'm a military brat. My dad was a Navy officer, served 21 years, and we moved around every so often. And Dad was very fortunate, I think, in the way he chose his career path. So he's an aviator. He was never really gone for more than a weekend, few days, few weeks, right? He'd go on missions, but he wasn't a carrier pilot, for example. He wasn't someone who would go overseas for 12 months and not come back. So I was very blessed. But I'll tell you what, I have no recollection of my dad being gone ever. I know he was, but I just don't remember ever missing my dad because he wasn't there. And it's not that I didn't miss him, I just don't remember. Like any pain or sadness or sorrow I felt as a young child when that was happening, it's completely gone, right? And I say that as a measure of hope, right? Because I've got a 4-year-old, and I still remember beginning of my department head tours. We went underway for about 4.5 months, did a patrol, and my son was, he must have been about a year and some change when I left. He was about a year and a half when I came back. And yeah, for the first day and a half, he wouldn't let me touch me. He was mad, and he didn't know me, he didn't pretend like he didn't know me. And it was hurtful. Boy, it was painful. But he got over it in 2 days, and and right now, he's 4 years old, and he has no recollection of that. Right? It's amazing how time can just heal all this stuff, right? And how kids will just, because they're in their developmental phase, especially when they're young. It's definitely challenging when you're older, when your kids are older, and maybe they're in early teenage years, and so they're not just going to forget it. But if they're older, then that means they can understand, right? And then it's incumbent on you, the mom or dad, the SWO, to tell your kids what you're doing. Teach them, right, why it's important that you're serving your country, the moral obligation that you have to our nation, to the republic, right, to the people, and teach them, not to be proud of you for your own ego, but to be proud of you for the sacrifice. Because, as a SWO and any service member, we're making tremendous sacrifices, and really we're doing it for them, right? Both from a financial security and financial stability perspective, and to ensure the success of our nation, the prosperity of our nation. So, the older the kids get, the more they'll be able to understand that. But you have to tell them that. You can't just assume they're going to figure it out. And again, it's not to stroke your own ego, but it's to make sure they understand why daddy or mommy is gone, and why it's important, and why instead of just being sad that you're not there, they can be proud and they can be happy that you are helping the country, that you're helping your sailors, right? So tell your kids, hey, mommy or daddy, they've got 20 or 30 people that work for them, they've got 200 or 300 people that work for them, and they're taking care of them because somebody needs to watch out for them. And so your mommy or daddy is doing that, and he's loving them the way he loves you, and he's taking care of them. So let's pray for him that that he's safe and can help out these people, right? It's important for kids to have that framework. Okay, so work-life balance, right? At some point, you just need to call it a day, right? As a SWO, certainly if you're going into your department head tours, every CO I've ever had tells you that the department head tours are your toughest tours in your career. I'll say that they were tough, but I gotta imagine being a CO is a pretty tough job too. So, but if you are not careful and you're not disciplined with your time, you will find yourself on the ship every day till 2200, right? That could happen easily. It goes back to what I talked about, that CO that said, hey, you've got hundreds of things to do, and you got to figure out, and you got to pare them down and figure out what is actually important, what needs to get done today. And that's critical with your family, right? With your spouse, with your kids. You've got to draw sort of a line in the sand and say, okay, 1700, 1800, 1900, whatever the time is, that's when I leave, right? Unless there's a crisis, right, that is happening, that's when you leave, and you will carve out some time to go spend with your kids, right? So as an personal example, right? My son is 2 or 3 years old, right? Through my department head tours, 1 to 3, something like that, 1 to 4, and there's a lot of days where I was getting home at 1900, and we start bedtime at 1900, right? So I'd get home and have maybe 30 minutes with my kid, and that's all, right? That's crappy. And I certainly have had peers who got no time with their kids, right? Not getting home again till like 1920, 22, 2300. Sometimes just spending the night on the ship, even when they're not on duty. And that's dangerous, right? Because it wears on you, right? It wears on you. It's something that, a lot of SWOs, the culture is, well, you just suck it up and you deal with it. Yeah, right? But when you're not paying attention and you're not careful, that really just destroys your morale, right? Even as you're slugging on, it causes you to lose faith in the mission, to lose faith in the job, and it's why a lot of folks get out after the department head tours. There's a huge, gap in lieutenant commander billets, which is right when you would be getting out of your department head tours. And it's because so many people get out. You're halfway through your career, you're 10, 11 years in, you think, well, I can only, just use 10 more and I get my retirement. And a lot of folks, their work-life balance is destroyed and they get out. So it's critically important to pay attention to this, right? So you've got to draw a line in the sand. And you can't just quit, right? If you got a lot of stuff going on, you have to be smart. You have to organize your time. It sounds obvious, I guess, but it's people, and me included, man, you get to 1700 at the end of the day and you realize, geez, I still have 40 things to do, right? What did I do all day? Some of that's in your control, right? And some of that's not, when the plan of the day dictates where you got to be. But it means you need to be efficient. You need to learn how to do your job, to do your admin. You need to learn how to delegate. Whew. That is another topic I'm going to have just strictly for department heads, pre-department heads, but delegation. If you do everything yourself, and I've had peers that do this, if you do everything yourself, you are going to work yourself to death, and you will be there forever. And if you have kids, you're doing them a disservice, right? You need to figure out how to get yourself home by 6 or 7 o'clock every day at the latest, right? For my first tour as WEPs, I was able to get home by 16 to 1700 most days, and that was largely due to having a really fantastic group of khaki that knew what to do. They were motivated, and they got the job done. In my second tour, the hours got a little bit longer, but not by any fault of my khaki. It's just the circumstances of the ship had changed, and so work increased, and so I had to come home a little later. But still, you make time, right? You make time, and you just say, I'm leaving, right? This can wait. This will be here tomorrow. I'm leaving. I'm going to go see my kids. And then certainly, once you get home, make that quality count, right? Put your phone down. Put your computer down. If you've only got 30 to 60 minutes a day with your kids, make sure that's what you're doing, right? And then if you need to stay up late to take care of stuff on your phone or your computer or talk to your wife or your husband, then do that. But make sure your kids get your undivided attention. And I'm not, I'm guilty of violating this rule, but it's because I've learned it, right? So I'm advising you to do the same. Work-life balance, gosh, it's a SWO. Just, you're going to have to work hard when you're on the ship. You're going to have to work hard when you're in front of your sailors, but you've got to keep your family in mind, right? It takes a tough family, a tough wife, or a tough husband to put up with the SWO life. And certainly kids, like I said, are resilient, but you got to make sure you don't neglect them. Don't just assume they're going to be fine. Just like you don't neglect your sailors, right? You don't just let Petty Officer Timmy, go do his own thing for 6 months and never check up on him. You can't do that with your family either. They require the same level of maintenance that our equipment does, right? Do a daily check, right? You got to do your daily maintenance check, which is give them a hug, give them a kiss, tell them you love them, and be there for them. It's daunting, right? It's daunting. I'll share something very personal. When I was on patrol as a department head, first big patrol, I wept for my son. Um, Not because I missed him or I missed my wife, and not because I feared dying, but I did think about death a lot. And this was in the wake of the Fitz and the McCain. And, I got a whole other, opinion on all those things and the after effects. But I did think, because I do believe that war will not evade us, that it will come to us one day. I started thinking about my son growing up, and all he'd have with me, or all he'd have of me, are some of these YouTube videos that I'd made for him. These little 1, 2 minute, 3 minute videos where I'd read him a book or I would just talk to him. And I thought about how sad that would be that he would grow up without me. Because I was very blessed to have a father up until I was almost 25. My dad was a great man, and I was grateful for every second that the Lord blessed me with him. And it made me very sad to think of my son growing up without me. Now, that part of that I think was the stress of the job, being in a new position, and it was difficult to deal with. But as a person of faith, right, someone who believes in the Lord Jesus Christ and the resurrection of the body and the soul, right, eventually you kind of realize, hey, God's in control, right? We all got to die, right? We all got to die. And you just got to make sure that every day with your kids, you make it count. And when you can't, because you're on deployment, you're on duty, then you just send them emails, make them videos. I used to make YouTube videos on the ship. We'd pull into port somewhere. I'd go find a hotel or Starbucks or somewhere, get some Wi-Fi, and then I'd upload a bunch of videos, right? Make sure that my son, could see me. Granted, for that first day and a half I got back, apparently it didn't matter. He thought I was a stranger or a traitor for abandoning him. But it's something that I know he watched with my wife and made him laugh and smile while I was gone, right? And that's what it comes down to. You're going to have to do your duty, right? You signed, you made an oath as an officer or as a sailor, right? And you've got to execute that. But you have a moral obligation to your family, and you can never abandon either. Right? You've got to figure this out. And your situation will be different than mine. It'll be different than 10 other people next to you. But the thing we have in common is this obligation. You've got to take care of the ship and your sailors. You've got to take care of your duty. And you need to take care of your family. And ask for help. That's all I can say is ask for help, right? Your XO, your CO, your master chief, your department head, whoever it is, right? Ask for help. If you need time for your family, ask for it, because it's worth it. And we all understand. Most of us, I don't know what the percentage is, but a lot of us have families, right? Whether we're married or we're married with kids, and we get it, right? I certainly get it. And I made I didn't have any, I don't think I had anybody working for me that had kids, but if they needed time off to go see their loved one, I would do my best, right? Well, I should say I had plenty of enlisted guys that had kids. I don't think any of my JOs did, but if somebody's got a school recital, yeah, go take care of business chief, right? Go take care of that. And that's really what it's all about, right? Is trying to find that balance and helping others when you can, and not giving up, right? Not giving up. If you find that you've been working till 2200 every day for 4 weeks, go tell the old man, go tell the XO, whoever your boss is, listen, I've been busting my hump. I need, a week of leave or 3 days of liberty. I need something, and go give it to your kids, right? And if you've been fortunate enough to have a lot of time with your family, well, when you get to work, you need to give it 120%. Part of that balance, right? Okay, I rambled a lot. This is a long video. It's 20 minutes. I'm sorry. But I hope this helps, right? And if you have any advice or tips or tricks, feel free to comment. Please post. And I'll probably do some follow-on videos, how to stay married as a SWO, and things like that. But if you're a mom or dad and you're a SWO, it's a tough job. And don't worry, don't fret. You can do this, right? Many have done it who've come before you. Many who come after you will be able to do it as well, and you can too. And if you ever need help or advice, please come talk to me. Certainly talk to your friends on the ship and your chain of command. All right. God bless you, warfighters.